Welcome back to the Arthritis Broadcast Network's 8th annual CR Arthritis Facebook and Twitter event at the Canadian Rheumatology and Arthritis Health Professions Association's annual scientific meeting. My name is Ellen, and I'm the Programs Coordinator at Arthritis Consumer Experts. And today we are joined by Dr. Claire LeBlanc, a board-certified pediatric rheumatologist and a sports medicine physician who is based at the Montreal Children's Hospital. She has helped to create the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines for children and youth and recent recommendations for participation regardless of chronic disease or disability. Welcome, Dr. LeBlanc. We are extremely excited to have you with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So, Dr. LeBlanc, the general public may not be aware that certain types of arthritis actually manifest or are more prevalent in children. Can you share a little bit about your expertise and what led you to pediatric rheumatology?
Well, that is probably about an hour discussion in and of itself. But actually, I started off in pediatrics and I fell in love with sport medicine. And I started to really get into all of the ins and outs of the types of patients that we see as sport docs. And then I fell into, if you will, an academic position in my local hospital. And they asked me to partner with the rheumatologist. And then I fell in love with pediatric rheumatology. And then I went to Toronto and got my training. So long story short, I've been around a while.
I love how you combined, you were able to find a niche kind of between the two passions and the two worlds. And you know, as an exercise physiologist, we are so grateful to have you.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I have to say that for my athletes, I think I'm able to provide better care because of my knowledge in rheumatology. And for my rheumatology patients, I think I can provide better care because of my knowledge in sport medicine. So I feel really fortunate.
Wonderful. And our kind of next question is, for your great debate that will be going on at the scientific meeting, could you just give us kind of a quick overview or a summary of what's going to go down at that debate?
Well, I think the debate itself is, be it resolved that the rheumatology healthcare provider is responsible for prescribing and monitoring physical activity. And I happen to be on the yes, I believe they should side. And my partner is also on the for side, and she is a physiotherapist based in Toronto. So I think we've got a really amazing team.
That's wonderful. And I know that this is an ongoing conversation in all these different fields across health. So, you know, as an exercise physiologist, I also want to promote physical activity, but from my perspective, and I know from patients' perspective, it comes with a lot more weight when it's coming from a specialist.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's an absolute good point. But I think repetition is the key there too, that the more of us that are actually recommending physical activity and reducing sedentary activity, I think the better. And, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, you know, do we really have to, you know, be promoting physical activity for children and youth, and specifically for children with arthritis? And the reality is the kids in Canada weren't doing that great before the pandemic, but they're really not doing great now. Not only do they have, you know, way more time on, you know, sedentary activities such as gaming or TV watching, they also spend more time sleeping, which I suppose we all need sleep, but they're way less active than they were. And unfortunately, that's having a negative impact on their health, including mental health. We've had a huge rise in attempted suicides, substance abuse, and eating disorders just in this pandemic alone. So I think that it's nice to maybe, oh, do we really have to? But I really think that the health and wellness of our patients really needs us here. So yes, I think it's time for us to help our patients in any way we can and encourage them to be more active.
Well said, well said. Like no better time than right now to really really bring this to the forefront of care.
Absolutely.
So playing devil's advocate now, what are some of the, would you say, the prominent barriers to counseling on physical activity from the, perspective of a specialist? You are extremely busy.
I think that some of the barriers that come to mind, that I face as well is, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to talk about physical activity. Come on, like I have to talk about their medication and adherence and, vaccines and COVID vaccines and COVID, and it just becomes overwhelming. So the reality is that we have to make the time, because this is a critical piece of their health, of their health care. And if we don't do it, who will? So I do believe that it's important that they hear it from us, because believe it or not, when patients hear it from the doctor, they're more likely to do it. And we're saying to ourselves, even if we talk about physical activity, they're probably not going, it's not going to change their behavior. But in fact, if we're part of the solution in recommending that they be more physically active, they're far more likely to do it. So even though, yes, we may not have the time, yes, the patients may not do everything we say right away, I think just repetition and small baby steps moving forward, and they're going to come along.
That's a really great point that you bring up, that we as healthcare providers, to present that unified front, to repeat that message, and slowly, right? It's not going to be like day and night, someone's going to pick up physical activity, but we're taking steps progressively towards that.
Yeah. And if you put, posters in your offices, if you put pictures of yourself being active, or some of your patients being active, if they allow you to do so, it goes a long way to remind your entire clientele that you actually prioritize physical activity, and you show it in your office. So that's another way to kind of get them thinking about it the right way.
Leading by example. I love that. And on top of that, do you have any kind of specific strategies that you use in your own practice with your own patients?
Well, considering I actually helped create the prescription for healthy active living, I have those in my office and I use them. One of the things that I learned when having to face behavior change such as this is that it's best to try to tackle one thing at a time. So, ask your client, listen, of all these things that maybe we could change to improve your health, which one do you want to work on? And they may say, well, I want to change my diet a little bit, or I'm willing to reduce the amount of time I text. I'm willing to reduce the amount of time I'm on my phone, or I really want to increase my physical activity. And then focus on that area and then help them be able to move in that direction through a physical activity prescription.
That's great. Like the sizable chunks that you're talking about is the way to go. I love that.
One of the other things that I think is really helpful too, and I think the adult side does a better job of this than we do, Exercise is Medicine calls physical activity a vital sign. And this can be part of your EMR, which reminds you to actually ask the question. And so it doesn't take long to ask them how active they are or how many minutes they're physically active. I think for kids and youth, it's a little bit different. We do have two EMRs. One is the Rourke report, which is for babies and very, very young little ones, but also the Greg Health Report, which is for children that are a bit older. And they utilize physical activity as a vital sign in that EMR. So if you are someone that is trying to or in the process of creating your EMR, you might want to look at potentially getting a tool like that to be added in so that it reminds you to ask every time.
Yeah, with all of the advances in technology, there are kind of solutions and prompts that are coming out to really, help the healthcare provider as well.
Absolutely. And the thing is again, we talked about just the general population having gotten rather unwell because of COVID without necessarily getting COVID, just being inactive. We know that whatever statistics there are for healthy individuals, those statistics are far worse for children with disability. So they're more likely to have problems with obesity, be less active, to be having related, complications such as their blood pressure, and mental health is a big issue in kids with underlying disability. And children with arthritis are no different. And so if you're thinking, let's say you're a family physician and you see all sorts of different patients and you're saying, I really want to promote physical activity in my practice, that's great for the general person and go for it. But for us, it is even more important because our patients are not doing as well as the general population. So it's up to us to really try and make a difference.
Awesome. And for patients and for kind of family members who want to learn more about physical activity and perhaps they, haven't been counseled on it, where should they go? Who should they talk to?
Well, the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology I was actually part of that team in the creation of these 24-hour guidelines for physical activity. And they include things like sedentary behavior, light physical activity, sleep, and of course, exercise itself, or moderate to vigorous physical activity. And these are good ways to start when you're looking at, okay, how can I as an individual change what I'm doing each day to promote wellness? I think it's a great website to go to, and it'll give you an idea of the kinds of things that you can do even right now. And what's very nice about that is it has recommendations right from infancy all the way to elder adults. So don't feel like you're left out. I mean, it's all there for you. And for children and youth, also the Canadian Pediatric Society has an amazing Caring for Kids website, which is in both French and English. And there's a lot of tips in there on healthy eating, physical activity, what to do with sleep, or what are the guidelines we should be following for sleep, and what do we do with our gaming and the amount of time we're on tablets. So these are two sources that I think could be very helpful for parents to go to and for adults themselves to be able to see what the guidelines are and determine what kind of changes they might be able to do to improve their health.
We will definitely look those up. We'll link them below the video. I'm super curious. I will read them myself. So thank you very much.
Great.
And our last question here is, do you have any physical activity tips that you can share to help the patient, help the family along this disease journey and to improve some health outcomes?
I think that there's a few things. For example, if an adult is at work, and they happen to have arthritis, instead of sitting in a chair, sit on one of those big exercise balls. It helps you work on your core muscles. You're not just sitting there, you're actually moving a little bit while you do your work. The second thing that's useful, and I'm not asking people to go buy really expensive equipment, but I've seen some people actually have a treadmill with their desk and working while they walk. Now that's probably something only I would do, but that's another option if you want to do something at work. But I think one of the key things as an adult that I would really recommend, and I would also recommend to kids and youth, is don't sit for long periods of time. Incidental movement, get up out of your chair and walk even for 5 minutes and then come back to it rather than just constantly sitting. A little bit of activity is better than sedentary behavior. And the other thing is, okay, there's a lot of things that are shut down right now in Quebec. And the main reason for that is Omicron and all the patients and all the individuals that are affected. And so the best thing we can do right now, if it's not too cold, is go outside. And there's a lot of things we can do as a family. We can walk the dog as a family. we can ski if we like to ski as a family. We can snowshoe, hiking. The idea is getting outside, because fresh air and movement, just that alone, is better than sitting in the house. I do think that teenagers, sometimes they're not so keen to hang out with family and do things with family. So if you're part of a bubble with a friend and you can be doing activities with a friend, that works as well. And if it's too cold to go outside and you like doing things inside, there are some very interesting websites you can go to that either give you music that you can dance to, or other activities that you can do inside the house that'll actually get your heart rate up.
Anything counts, and it doesn't have to be super structured. It can be super fun, like you were saying.
Well, you know what? That is the key word. Make it fun, because nobody wants to do physical activity or exercise if it's one, boring, or two, tedious, or three, too hard, blah, blah, blah. The key thing is, whatever it is, make a game out of it. Make it fun, because then it's more likely that you're going to do it again.
Awesome. That is so great. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. LeBlanc. And we are really looking forward to that debate.
You will see a different picture of me for that debate. I'm just going to give you a little hint. Something's coming.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time. And we hope to see or have you on the show again someday.
Sure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.